Aloha, friends. So, I want to come on here for the first time. I am coming at you from the Ace of Cups here in Haiku on Maui. And I want to talk about the throat chakra. Um, it's something that has come up a lot in the last few days, something I've been thinking about. Um, there was someone that I have known for most of their lives, and I hadn't seen them in a while. And when I heard them speak, since I've seen them as they've gone through puberty, I've noticed a very interesting quality in their voice that I also find in mine as well. And it got me thinking about how not being able to express ourselves and having our needs met um, blocks the throat chakra, and how I think that actually uh, um, shows up more in the way that we speak, in the tone of our voice, and then we think that it actually does. And so I got to thinking about myself and how I have felt, what's the best way to put it? Shut down in so many ways in my own life and with my own expression. And so, just to go in a little bit about the throat chakra. So it does govern communication, which seems obvious, but also truth, and self-expression, and our authenticity. Uh, and that being said, when researching the throat chakra, I started to realize that, actually, I didn't realize, I read it, that the throat chakra is what bridges the heart and the third eye. And so when we feel disconnected from our intuition, when we're unable to trust ourselves, this plays a huge role in that, and our inner guidance and our self-trust, right? Which then turns into our intuition and being able to trust what we're getting, what we're downloading. And so, for that being said, I want to just go into a few physical signs that the throat might be blocked, right? So if you feel a tightness in your throat, a burning in your throat, like when you're little and you're crying and you're trying to swallow it down and it burns, that we get used to doing, and it just is something that then follows us through the rest of our life. Which you don't realize that that's not necessarily something that has to be. We have just gotten used to that. We've been conditioned for that burning in our throat when we want to swallow our thoughts, our feelings, or we're told to not speak up, or that our opinions, our needs, our thoughts, our wants aren't wanted. Also, when listening to your voice and not recognizing what you're hearing, that things sound different in your head, that maybe sound different, in a recording, or the way that you're viewing yourself. It's that perception that I also believe has to do with a blocked throat chakra. Other things, tensions in the neck when you hold a lot of stress, when you hold your stress in your shoulders and your neck and your jaw, the tightening, the grinding of your teeth. Those types of things can also be a sign of a blocked throat chakra. Thyroid imbalances, so it can be hormonal, right? Because you're again swallowing energy, swallowing thoughts, swallowing needs back into your body that actually need to come out. And then the energy is then throwing off, right, the thyroid and causing imbalances in our hormones, which can show up in many different ways as well. Also, chronic sore throat or laryngitis, as cited. So these are some physical signs that you may be noticing about yourself, but yet haven't put the two and two together. Some emotional signs is difficulty saying no, or saying yes to things that you don't want to do. Oversharing and dominating conversations are also signs, which I did not know until I did the research here. It's almost as if there's a leak, right? There's a leak in the strength, in the harnessing of knowing our truth and keeping that sacred. Okay. Also, creative blocks. So if you're having trouble writing, singing, screaming, right? And you just can't get out that scream. You can't yell, articulating. Those can also be signs of blocks. Fear of public speaking, fear of just speaking into a camera. Also fear of confrontation, which is something that I've had to deal with a lot within the last few years. Even mild conversation that, causes anxiety and physical reactions. And also just staying silent to keep the peace. These are all signs of a throat chakra that needs some work. Right, that needs some clearing. Also, some energetic signs, such as feeling choked up, right? And not just emotional, but that there is something within you, there's a lump in your throat, there is something that you can't seem to get out. And very similar to like a creative block, right? There's a block of being able to express your needs and express the energy that you want to bring to the table. And because what our intention may be might get a little skewed when we're in that actual situation because of the misalignment, right, of the energy centers. Also, again, disconnection from the intuition. I find this to be the most important one when we're readers or spiritual mentors, coaches, teachers, anyone that's working with the energy systems. It is highly, highly important to really care and nurture the throat chakra. This is something that I am now starting to work on. I feel that my intuition and the trust in myself has become stronger, and I think that now this is my next step. This has been opened a lot more. This also has been opened, the heart space, the head space, right? And now it's time for my throat chakra to open. And I say that because there's something blocking my development as well. And and you can call it a chakra, you can call it an energy system, you can call it whatever you want. The point is that when there's fear in expressing your needs and wants, to maybe just not even the people, but to the universe in at whole, right? That can just really add to your sense of unworthiness, because even you can't speak up for yourself, right? And that's something that's really important, and we must do that. Which then leads me into, suppressed emotions, literally and figuratively swallowing your emotions. Again, like I said before, staying silent to keep the peace, just being rejected and not being able to speak your truth and not being able to let people, or for people to let you speak and take up that space that we as humans have the right to take up. Other things that I want to talk about are, there's many ways to communicate besides words, and we really have signals, right? It's almost impossible now to really get our points across, even with the words, to not add the emoji, right? We need those physical body language symbols, signals, to really clearly, articulately allow for open communication. And ideally, probably not as many ums and uhs as I use, which I do use a lot. So I apologize for that. And listening, observing, instead of thinking about what you're about to say next, instead of being more concerned about what this person is thinking of you while they're speaking, it's important to take the time to really listen and observe. And you can really get a lot of your questions answered by just observing. Another thing, so basically understanding, and the best way to be understood is to also just pay attention, right? Like I just said, pay attention to the physical signs. Take the time to listen to what we're saying. It's important to take a moment and let it sink in, let it process. You don't have to respond immediately. And that also goes back to difficulty saying no's, or saying yes when you don't really want to. It's going to take practice, but you're going to need to take a moment so that you can then let others know, I will get back to you, or let me think about it. Those types of things give you some time away from that initial, if they need an answer right away, I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer right away. Also, something I've learned in saying no to people, or just setting boundaries, and I hope the people in my life know that I set boundaries when it's only absolutely necessary. I love to give, I love to be of service, and that the only time that I have to say no is when I really have to say no. And there's another and so in me saying no, or me putting up boundaries, I have actually become more receptive to other people's no's and other people's boundaries. Whereas before, no's and boundaries and rejections were, well, that's what they were. They were rejections. Even if they weren't full-on rejections, it was just the no was personal, and it felt personal to me. And and it wasn't about me. It was about their boundary. It was about what, how they held themselves. And so it was important for me to find my boundary. And then I became a lot less resentful. and a lot less feeling of attack when I started putting up my own boundaries and being able to say no. And that has been huge. I still have physical reactions when having to do that and having to have, mild confrontations or having to speak to somebody about something that isn't ideal, because I love to give people what they want. And that's just the way it is. And there's sometimes when it's not aligned. It's not aligned with me. And so there is a frequency, a sound to get into that you can repeat with yourself in meditation, either in your head or when chanting, probably even ideally when chanting and getting that physical vibration in your words and in your voice box. I think that could make a huge difference. This is the sound hum, HAM, but it's pronounced hum. This has the potential to release emotional blockages that may be keeping us from promoting clear, authentic self-expression. And that's really what this is about. It's not about putting anybody in their place. It's not about getting people to do the things that they don't want to do. It's about it's about us being able to fully express who we are. And sometimes that is by saying no. And sometimes that is by letting people know when they have wronged us or when they've hurt us. And it's important to let those feelings, those vibrations, those energies, those emotions outside of our body, because this is where they're going to sit. And I'm really interested to see, in the more I do these videos, how my voice might change. And see, I definitely hope to get rid of all those ums and uhs. But also, to see how I evolve from this form of self-expression, which clearly is so important because of the work that we've been doing.